What is going on, everyone? Griffin here, coming at you with an all-new armor class alternative for tabletop role-playing games called Warding. Let's head over and let's talk about it. So what is warding? To determine how well you ward off incoming attacks, you will need to determine your character's warding. This dynamic damage reduction system will allow you to determine how much damage your character can take before it starts losing HP. To determine warding, you must add 10 plus your fortitude modifier. This will give your character a baseline warding. As you gain access to armor and other defensive material, you will add this flat bonus to the already established warding of your character, giving yourself a new baseline warding. This fluctuating damage reduction system is designed to allow all characters to contribute while in combat, while also allowing parties to synergize in very dynamic ways to allow for more tactical combat if they desire. So for warding reduction and how the warding system actually works, during a combat encounter, as you continue to take damage, your warding will fluctuate drastically. When a creature attacks another creature but does not meet the creature's total warding, you subtract the attack roll from the current warding of the creature, giving the creature a new total warding. Once the warding for a creature is met or the current warding is reduced to 0, the creature's warding is broken, dealing damage directly to HP. Once a creature takes damage to its HP and the attacking creature ends their turn, the warding is then reset to the baseline value. So for warding augmentation, select mastery options, magical items, or consumable items will allow you to temporarily augment or boost your warding. When these are applied, you must add the flat bonus to your current warding. Once this augment is reduced, it is no longer applied to your warding. These augments can be applied to your character's warding at any time, given you have the essence to do so, and it is your turn in Alacrity. Additionally, allies can also grant you warding augmentations on their turn in Alacrity. Lastly, if you have a mastery option that allows you to augment your warding, you can expend as much essence as you would like to raise your warding, but once these augments are reduced, it will require additional essence to augment these further. So to determine your character's warding, you need to roll your fortitude, which I've already have established here, but within the game you have 3 core ability stats: fortitude, vigor, and judgment. Fortitude is primarily your defensive stat, vigor is primarily your non-magical attack stat, and judgment is your magical attack stat. So for here, we have a scenario set up where we have a fighter fighting against a goblin. For the fighter, they have a fortitude of 15, which is going to be a +2. So 10 plus 2 equals 12. And then they also have access to heavy armor, which is +5, which gives them a baseline warding of 17. So whenever we roll down here to the armor section, light armor is a +3 warding increase, medium armor is a +4, and heavy armor is a +5. So with heavy armor equipped to our fighter, that gives a total of 17, whereas the goblin, on the other hand, has a fortitude of 10, which is a +0, but they do have access to light armor, so it's 10 plus 3, which gives them a total warding of 13. The vigor modifiers, we're going to say that both creatures have a short sword, so the vigor modifiers is going to be your plus attack bonus modifier. So they both have a 12, which is going to give them a +1. So in this scenario, we're going to kind of do a rough simulation of what a simple 1 versus 1 combat would be like within this system. Just for an overview, and I'm going to do a full video about this topic specifically, but each creature by default has access to 3 essence. And essence is basically your action economy, and it allows you to either do your basic actions, mastery options, or things like that. So each creature has access to 3. So the fighter is going to use 1 essence to move up to the goblin, and then it is going to use 1 essence to attack the goblin with its short sword by rolling a d20 and adding the vigor modifier that is associated with that, which is a +1. So it's going to roll up to it and attack, which is going to be a 14, plus 1 is going to be a 15, which is going to break the warding of the goblin, doing damage directly to HP. So they both have access to short swords, which is going to do a baseline default damage of 2 damage to that creature, which is going to reduce its overall HP down to 1. Now, the fighter also has an additional essence to use here, and this player would have to determine what they wanted to do with this additional essence. The goblin warding is broken, which means if it makes another attack on the goblin, if the fighter makes another attack on the goblin, it is going to do damage directly to HP, which is going to eliminate the goblin completely out of the fight, right? Or could do something else, could attack another creature or whatever, just to keep this creature, depending on the situation and scenario that is actively happening within combat right now. So if the fighter does do another swing, it's going to do 2 damage, which is going to fully reduce this creature down to 0 and going to kill the creature outright, or incapacitate the creature, if you will. Now, let's say that this creature had an HP of 5 and it broke the warding with the initial hit and did 2 damage, and did 2 damage with the follow-up hit. It would drop the HP to the creature down to 1, and the warding for the creature would reset back to 13, which means that in the next person's turn, let's say that there's other people here, they would have to break that 13 warding again in order to do damage directly to HP. So the goblin may have access to a mastery option that can temporarily boost or augment its total warding, because it currently has a warding of 13. If it uses an essence to do so, and let's say it raises it by 5, then that makes the new baseline warding for that an 18. It could do it 3 times and raise it by 15, which would give it a total warding of 28. And that's the beauty and wonder of this system, is having mastery options and fluctuating warding systems that allow you to do very interesting things like this. The goblin could spend all of its action economy buffing itself, continuously buffing itself, or another character that is siding with the goblin could use all of their action economy to apply a warding augmentation to the goblin so that it can continue to fight while taking and soaking up as much damage as possible. It takes the creature that is buffing it almost completely out of the equation, and it allows the goblin to do what the goblin needs to do as a frontliner type character. So let's say that the goblin did not die, let's say that it has 1 HP left, and it is going to attack the fighter in the following turn, since there are 2 of them. So the goblin would roll a d20 and would be a 15 plus 1, and it would be a 16, right? Because the goblin has a plus 1 vigor modifier, which would not be enough to break the warding for the fighter. So now the goblin has to decide if it wants to attack again to do damage to HP, or if it wants to do something else. So if the goblin attacks again, it's going to roll a 1 because it has a plus 1 modifier by default, which is going to do damage directly to the fighter, which is going to drop the HP down to 5. And let's say that it attacks again because it has 3 essence, it's going to drop it down to 3. The fighter is still up in the fight. The fighter still has HP, doesn't necessarily have to worry about trying to seek cover or try to figure out some type of a healing situation here. So they're both still in the fight, and they're both ready to throw down. Because the warding system fluctuates as drastically as it does on purpose, and there's different types of mastery options and things that help, buff or boost the actual defenses of the character, HP within the game is very low on purpose. So health points are the primary method used to determine the status of your character. While warding exists as a defensive measure in an attempt to mitigate as much health loss as possible, health points directly determine how healthy your character is at any given time. When your HP is reduced to 0, your character will enter into the dying phase. There are a few primary methods to determine the starting health points for your character. When selecting a pre-made mastery set, you will be assigned a starting HP for your character. If you decide to build a character from scratch with the boon system, you must use boons to purchase HP, acquiring as much HP as you would like until all resources are exhausted. So since the HP system is very low, and since the warding system, the roll to hit system fluctuates your armor class or your warding up and down, weapon damage does a static damage number whenever that warding is broken. For example, improvised weapons and unarmed strikes do 1 damage, whereas light weapons do 2 damage, whereas heavy weapons do 3 damage. And then you also have a polearm, which does 1 damage, but it's melee up to 10 feet. And then you have light ranged and heavy range weapons that do 2 damage and 3 damage. Damage and HP was designed this way so that you could always have a very interesting encounter where player decision ultimately mattered, right? Because if you have access to buff your own warding and to raise your defenses as much as you would like, then that comes down to player decision. Do you want to power through this, take damage, tank as much as you possibly can, and try to deal as much damage, or do you want to play back a little bit, buff yourself, buff other characters if you have the mastery options to do so, and play it a little bit more reserved and a little bit more cautiously? This adds some very interesting dynamics in combat overall. So one of the biggest issues that I have with tabletop role-playing games, and this is kind of what spearheaded writing a whole new system, was the way that armor class worked. I did not like the idea that you could move your character up to another creature and you could try to attack that creature, and if you missed, you just missed. I didn't like that all that often. I thought that it felt bad, especially someone that played primarily like fighters and melee type characters. Sure, you get extra attacks. Sure, you get all these different bonus attacks and feats and, you know, whatever you may have access to depending on what type of RPG system that you're playing, but it just felt bad. And then it feels bad for a lot of players, at least a lot of players that I've played with, whenever they move up and they're like, oh, I want to do this cool thing, and it just doesn't hit. It just doesn't land. Whereas in a lot of those systems, spellcasters, even if the creature, you know, saves or dodges out of the way, they're still doing some damage to it. Now, I know that there's spell slots, and I know why the reasoning behind that design is, but it just feels bad for people that like to play melee type characters that move up to a creature and attack it, and they miss 2 or 3 times in a row. It just sucks. And I know that it's all random, it's all dice rolls. I get that. I completely understand. And I'm not poo-pooing on any of these other systems that do either, you know, an armor class type system or a damage mitigation type system where your armor just reduces the amount of HP damage that is incoming. It's fine. If that's what you like, then do it. But this for me is the better system overall. And I've done a lot of play tests with this where it feels more impactful, and it feels like the players have more control over their character because they have the ability to gain different types of armor. They have ability to gain different types of mastery options that allow them to buff themselves and allow them to stack as much damage reduction or warding on themselves as they want to, and pretty much be as tanky overall as they want to. This to me feels better. And I do like this system a lot more, and this was the starting point for me designing a tabletop system. Was how does armor work in other games? How does armor class work in other games? What feels good about that? What feels bad about that? And what can I do to change it or to fix it? And this is the primary thing that is the most different from other RPG systems, and that is the most interesting in my opinion with this type of system, where you can do this. You can make an impact. If you move up to hit someone and you roll a 7 and they have a warding of 10, then you reduced it by 7, which you done a significant amount of reduction to that character. You may not have broken them, you may not have done damage directly to their HP, but someone only has to roll a 3 after that, or their vigor modifier may be enough to just hit that character by default on the next person's turn. It allows for more player choice, and also it feels good in battle where everybody is doing something to affect the creatures that are currently on the game board. Now, if you want to, you know, pick apart this type of a system and put this into your game, you can do that pretty easily. So if I'm going to use D&D, for example. If you wanted to get rid of armor class and introduce a warding system, you would do 10 plus either that character's dex modifier or constitution modifier, and then you would have to go in and assign flat warding values specifically to different types of armor. So plate armor might be a +5 warding, you know, scale mail may be a +3, leather may be a +2. You know, you assign these different values, and then you could also have different values and different effects that these different types of armors within D&D or Pathfinder, whatever system you're playing in, could have on top of them. You would have to drastically reduce the amount of HP that a player has, and I have a couple of charts that we're fixing to go into that's going to be calculating enemy statistics, but it's going to apply the same way to characters. So for calculating enemy warding, it's pretty straightforward. We have the warding value and then the difficulty that is associated with it. So for a 15 warding, it is going to be a very easy creature, whereas a 35 plus 35, 40 to 50 is going to be a very hard creature. Calculating HP is going to be on a similar scale, so 1 to 2 is going to be considered a very easy creature, whereas 12 plus is going to be a very hard creature. And like I said, we want to keep HPs very low, but we want to keep warding very high. So we want players and also creatures to have very, significantly high warding compared to other tabletop games, but their HP to be significantly lower. Damage itself is pretty straightforward. 1 damage whenever warding is broken is going to be considered easy, 2 is going to be moderate, and 3 is going to be difficult. And you can do this same type of system in D&D or in Pathfinder, where you take these metrics that's outlined here and you just assign them to your player characters, and then you may want to create some type of abilities or some type of options, player options that they have access to that allow them to buff their own warding in combat or buff other players' warding, because that kind of goes hand in hand with the warding system, is the ability to go in and actually buff your own warding overall. So for example, of some, defensive mastery options that we are currently playing with inside of this system, like commanding endurance, you can command an ally of your choice to avoid incoming attacks. You grant them +5 warding. Divine grit, you gain the ability to bolster your warding by giving yourself favor on your current warding, and we'll go into favor in a separate video. Battle formations, while having a shield equipped, your allies within 5 feet of you gain +5 warding. And this is a lot of this stuff, like the commanding endurance is a +5. Once that 5 is gone, then you're going to have them buff that character again by using essence to do so. These things allow you to do very interesting things within combat, and also allow you to be a little bit tankier and make better decisions, hopefully, while you're playing. So this is the starting point that I decided to go with for my tabletop role-playing game system. I think that warding is the most interesting and unique thing that is in the system. There's a lot of other cool stuff that's going on that we'll get into in other videos, but warding is kind of the backbone of like how I started creating the system, and I thought that it would be a good place to kind of jump off and start explaining how the system overall works. Now, if you want to try the system that we currently have so far, which the current working title for it is the Pallid Veil, P-A-L-L-I-D, the Pallid Veil. And it's just kind of a working title. We don't really have anything else. I just thought it was a cool name, so that's kind of what we're going with. But the documents will be uploaded to archive.org. And I will continue to update those documents as I continue to create and also, make changes to the system. So if you're interested in trying the system out as a whole, there's information in there for character creation and also the 3 pillars. So you have all of the combat information broken down, you have all of the environmental information broken down, and also the social information broken down. And it's enough to get started on playing a game if you wanted to run a session or two. So I'll have a link to that in the description down below. And if you do try it out, and if you do have questions, concerns, if certain things don't feel balanced, please feel free to reach out to me either over on Discord. You can leave a comment down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I do have a Twitter. The link will be in the description down below. So if you do have any, questions, concerns, or any type of weird balance stuff going on, then please let me know. I want to build this game. I want to continue to build this game, but I also want the help of a community to build this game. I want people to be excited for the game, and I want them to contribute positively to what we're trying to do over here. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and also consider subscribing to the channel. If you're interested in trying this out, this system out, please check the description down below. Also, there's links to my social accounts, things like that. So if you do want to reach out to me, please feel free to. And thanks for coming by and watching, guys. I'm very nervous about doing these videos because this is something that my brother and I have been working on for a very long time. And I'm ready to put it out there and see what people think about it overall. So please let me know what you think, the good, the bad, and also the ugly. And tune in for the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.